So it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to call the River Valley's Unified School District meeting to order at 7 p.m. For the 2023 River Valley Unified School District annual meeting. The legal voters of the town of Dover and Wardsboro, Vermont are hereby notified and warned that pursuant to Title 17, Vermont statutes annotated Section 2655, they are to meet at the Wardsboro Town Hall, 71 Main Street, Wardsboro, Vermont, on Tuesday, April 25th, 2023 at 7 p.m. to act upon the following articles to wit. And I got to tell you, it's really strange standing up here talking and not having Dr. Backus here. Article 13 was to be voted by Australian ballot for the board members because of the change we made. We voted on a few months ago. The votes get cast on Monday, and then the district clerk has 24 hours to count the votes. The votes have to be commingled, so he has to stick them in the bag, and they do jig, and we get Alan Bills to play a little tune, and they all mix up, and then we count them. So, Andy, do you want to report on the election?
Sure. So we had an election for school board directors, one from Dover and one from Wardsboro. The school director slot from Dover was a contested race. 2 people on the ballot. Mark Bernard Schauber received 44 votes. Michael J. Urquhart received 97 votes. There were 3 votes blank, so congratulations, Michael. He's in the audience here. The new school board director. And Kate Rideout ran away with it in Wardsboro, 130 votes. Thank you.
So please note the 2023 annual meeting is an in-person meeting. I guess we all figured that out. The meeting will follow all relevant and most updated recommendations for health and safety guidance issued by the state of Vermont. Please don't spit at your neighbors. I don't know what theirs really is any guidance, but that was left over just in case they came up with some stuff. BCTV is recording it, but it's not a hybrid meeting. It's all in person. So you may wonder why I'm standing up here and why the moderator isn't here. And if you all remember last year, we had an exciting contested race for moderator. I know, you tried hard. And it was actually, we counted, we asked for hands, it looked pretty close. The moderator then asked to have a show of hands, and it came out even. And so the moderator chose not to break the tie, so it went to a paper ballot. And the gentleman won, but he hadn't been a moderator, so he actually went to moderator school this year. And when he got done with moderator school this year, he called up, or he sent me an email saying, I'll pay for the school, but I ain't doing it, I'm resigning. So what we did is we decided to do something a little different this year. We're going to have our first articles to elect a moderator to serve for this meeting. And then what we're going to do is go through the meeting. And if those of you that have your book, the last article, Article 14, is to elect a moderator to serve for the fiscal year. So we thought if somebody is out there that has some interest in it, you can see what it's like. You can see how the meeting goes, and then you can decide if you want to run. One of the things I did try to speak to the gentleman who was elected last year, and I told him Andrew and I both go to the moderator schools. We're at the same school this year. It's a half a day, 3/4 of a day class. And we are able to help you, and you can get advice, and a moderator can, ask for help from other people who have experience. So, and the only other announcement I want to make before we elect a moderator is for some reason we forgot to grab the books, and we're not sure where the extra books are. So if you don't have a book, we were going to ask if people could share books. Chad and I are going to share a book. We got a couple books there, but we didn't bring enough books for everybody, but we will explain what's going on. So the first article, and the chairman of the board gets to start the meeting until we elect the moderator. That's why I'm talking to you. So Article 1 is to elect a moderator to serve for this meeting. Are there any nominations from anybody for a moderator for this meeting tonight? And you need to be recognized. For you, yes, sir.
I'd like to nominate Sarah Shippey.
Okay, so we have a motion or nomination for Sarah. Nominations don't need to be seconded, they just need to be made. Is there any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of Sarah moderating this meeting, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposed besides Sarah, please say nay. Sarah, please.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, so before we get started, relevant to Robert's Rules of Order, Rich has asked to suspend the rules for a particular aspect, and he would like to explain that.
So if it's okay with the voters, under Robert's rules, if you make a motion and you second the motion, you get to ask the first question, and we have always allowed the second person who seconded the motion to ask the second question. What we'd like to ask, if nobody has any objections, is that if the board can just address the article, give you a short 2-minute version of what it is all about, and then it would go back to that person who made the motion to ask the question. So Sarah's going to ask you if you have any objections to that.
So are there any objections to the proposed suspension of the rules? Seeing none, all in favor of the suspension of the rules? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the rules are suspended, and so the board will address the articles prior to any questions from the floor.
Can I ask you a favor?
Of course you can.
Could you ask them, anybody who is not a voter in Dover or Woodsboro to raise their hand?
Oh, yes, that's right. Do we have anyone present who is not a voter in the towns of Wardsboro or Dover? And your name is, sir?
Hi, I'm Mark Taschen. I'm headmaster at Brattleboro Academy.
All right, so we need to have a motion and a second to allow someone who's not a voter
Yes.
to speak.
I'm Stephanie Lasofsky
Oh.
from Woodsboro. I'd like to propose a motion to allow Mark Taschen to speak.
Thank you. And do I have a second for that motion?
Second, I'll second.
Well, I need one person. You'll all get it. I promise I'll call on different people all night, and I just need your name when you make your motion or second.
I second Neil Cutler of Woodsboro.
All right?
The person who made the motion, what was your
Say your
name?
name.
Stephanie Lasofsky.
Easy to spell.
Lasofsky.
She's gonna.
We've got a friend. We've got a friend. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so at the appropriate time, you will be
Okay.
called on, and
Thank you all.
you are now free to speak here. And there isn't anyone else here who is not a voter in Dover or Woodsboro. Okay, great. All right, Article 2, to elect a clerk to serve for the fiscal year of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. May I have a motion to elect a clerk?
Marcos Meady Dover, nominate Andrew McLean.
All right.
Chairman Strauss, second.
Jeremy Schroff, second. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of Andrew McLean for the clerk for this coming fiscal year?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Andrew McLean has been elected clerk to serve for the fiscal year 2020, July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. Motion to set a stipend of $2,400 for the clerk.
So moved, Jeremy Schroff.
Jeremy Schroff moves. Do we have a second?
Stephanie Lasofsky.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Makes it easy.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Does the board wish to speak to the motion? Okay. All right. Seeing no discussion, vote to set a stipend of $2,400 for the clerk. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the next part of the article is to set a stipend of $400 for an assistant clerk to be appointed and used at the discretion of the clerk.
I would like to motion that.
Andy McLean moves. Second.
Jeremy Strauss, second.
Jeremy Jeff, second. And Rich would like to address that?
So we've talked about this, but it was only started last year, so we just want to say that what happened is we're now doing some different elections, and because we're two towns, Andy obviously doesn't have the grand list for the town of or the voters list for Wardsboro. So the Wardsboro clerk has had to be involved, and Andy came to the board and wanted to reduce his pay and say, because he wanted to make it for the assistant clerk, and we felt it was important, especially we're doing a few, now that Wardsboro will be also electing their board member by ballot versus from the floor like they used to, so we would ask that you support this.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor of setting a stipend of $400 for an assistant clerk to be appointed and used at the discretion of the clerk?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Article 3, to elect a treasurer to serve for the fiscal year July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
I'd like to nominate Marco Tellini.
We have a motion. Andy McLean has nominated Marco Tellini. Do I have a second?
Deirdre Benson, Dover.
Deirdre Benson. Giving you time to write.
You could.
All right. All right, is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor of electing Marco Tellini to serve as treasurer for the fiscal year July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. To set a stipend of $2,400 for the treasurer. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move that.
Andy McLean
I'll
moves.
second that, Jeremy. Sure.
Jeremy Schraff seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none. Vote to approve setting a stipend of $2,400 for the treasurer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Article 4. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District set an annual stipend of school directors at $2,500 and for the chair at $3,000? May I have a motion?
Jeremy Shrub will.
Jeremy Schrapp moves Article 4. May I have a second? Your name, sir?
Peter McDonald, West Oak.
Peter McDonald. Do we need to? Okay. Is there any discussion on the article? So, shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District set an annual stipend for school directors at $2,500 and the chair at $3,000? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Article 5. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve mileage reimbursement at the federal reimbursement rate for the month in which the mileage occurred? Do you have a motion?
So moved, Jeremy
Jeremy
Shrub.
Schrapp. Do you have a second?
Amelia.
Amelia Nick, second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve mileage reimbursement at the federal reimbursement rate for the month in which the mileage occurred? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Article 6. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve the school board to move any surplus from the 2022-2023 budget into the general reserve fund to be reserved for a future use as approved by the voters?
So moved, Jeremy Shrub.
Jeremy Schrapp. Do I have a second?
Peter McDonald.
Now is a second. Anyone heard that?
Yeah, so we've been doing this in Dover for several years, and we started the first year in River Valleys. So we don't know what the surplus is going to be until sometime in August when we submit what they call a stat report to the state. So we project somewhere in the $100,000 range, but again, things could change. 10 new students could move in next month that we would pay tuition for, so that $100,000 could be gone. So what we ask is that you allow us, as soon as we get it, to put it into the general reserve fund. And the reason we do that is eventually Montpelier is going to figure out that we have some extra money, and they are taping it. And they may say, hey, wait, you know, that's our tax dollars we gave you, we want them back. So we try to get them somewhere so they're not as easy for them to get their hands on. So we would ask that you support this motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Any questions? Jeremy, you made the Motion, would you like to ask the question or speak to the motion?
Pardon, what?
Would you like to ask the question?
No,
Since you moved it.
I remember this discussion from last year, I agree completely with what you just said.
Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve the school board to move any surplus from the 2022-2023 budget into the general reserve fund to be reserved for future use as approved by the voters? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Page 2. Article 7. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District set the annual tuition rate to approved independent schools at $19,987, which is the Burton sending school tuition for the 2023-2024 school year?
So moved, Jeremy Schroeder.
Well, let me get somebody else. We had a new name back here. Name, sir?
So Mike Murphy.
Mike Murphy is moved.
Second.
And your name?
Deirdre Benson, Dover.
David Benson is a second. All right.
So if you go to page 8 in your book, and I actually have an extra book if there's some people that need one.
I'll need it too.
Thank you. So this article, people ask how come we voted on this last year and we voted on it the year before, and we have to vote on it every year. The state law requires that a school district that does not maintain a school has to pay the statewide average tuition rate or another amount voted on annually by the electorate. So every year we have to vote on this. So we bring this article up. It was petitioned the first time many years ago, and it's something that both Wardsboro had been doing and Dover had been doing. So what we've done is we use the Burton spending school rate, which this year is $19,987. And we asked that we set that rate for all schools. For a few years, we were just doing it for Burton and not other schools. And we started doing it a few years ago on petition in Dover before River Valley. So it would be any independent or private school, and it's up to. So if you look at that page, there's some schools that charge a little bit less than that. We wouldn't pay that amount because the tuition rate is different. So obviously it would just be for those schools that charge that. And it's a pretty clear cut article, and you will see it every year on the on the warning. So if we have any questions, and then Mark comes in case there's any tougher questions that we can't answer.
Sir,
One question.
could you say your name again?
Peter McDonald.
Here we go.
So the Twin Valley that they're quoting there at 18,000, Rich,
Yeah.
that does not include the transportation cost?
No, that's strictly tuition.
Okay.
And that's been an article, something we've discussed in the past. The last time we met in Wardsboro, we had quite a lengthy discussion about that, and that it only includes, that's only the tuition to the school or what the school charges.
Yes, sir?
Do we know what the cost per student is for transportation to that school?
To Twin Valley?
Yeah.
It's not per student, we run our own bus, so we would have to add up the labor. I don't know what I was asking.
Can you stand up just so we can see you while he's talking?
Yeah, so it's not a per pupil cost.
Right.
The cost is based on, we have a bus, we have a person that drives it, we have insurance, we have fuel, we have repairs. So when we get into the budget, you can see how much we spend on transportation.
Thank you. All right. Is there any other questions or discussion? Amelia Nick?
Hi, I just wanted to speak in support of this. My name is Amelia Nick. I am the Spanish teacher at Wardsboro Elementary School, and I went to Burton Academy when I was living in Dover. I still live in Dover, but I grew up in Dover, went to Dover Elementary School and all up through it. While I was at Burton Academy, I got to study abroad in Ecuador for 5 months, and I became fluent in Spanish during my time there. I wouldn't be able to have the job that I have today in the district, now teaching kids in the district that I came up through, if I hadn't had the opportunity to go to Burton. And I got that because we do the sending rate in Dover and Wardsboro. So I just wanted to speak in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question, Randy Capitano. The difference between the Burton rate and next year's statewide average, do you know what that is yet?
Yes, I believe it's on that page that I mentioned.
Page 8? I didn't see a statewide average.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Fiscal-
23
Oh,
announced tuition
my
is
bad.
17,278.
So a couple thousand more. So if you
Well-
vote this down and your kid goes to another school, potentially you could have to make up that difference.
$2,700-ish dollars.
Yeah.
2,700, I guess.
So, and I'm going to ask for a point of clarification. The, you were saying it will be up to $19,987 because we wouldn't pay more than that if the school's tuition was lower.
We wouldn't pay,
You
so
would
if
pay
a
the-
school
you would pay
tuition
the
was
church tuition.
19,000, we would pay the 19,000. We wouldn't pay 19,900.
So we're
to
setting the
school.
annual tuition rate of up to $19,987.
No, it just says 2.
I know, but I'm saying what we're actually
Oh, yeah.
moving is that we're setting it at up to that amount. And not to exceed, not a flat, but that's the same rate for every school.
It's a max.
Right, it's a maximum number. I just thought that was, it could be more. Yes, it is.
I think you're probably right. Should we amend it?
I don't think so, because this is the we've always had the article this way, because it's pretty much, I think it's in statute how it's supposed to be
Oh,
worded.
it is, all right.
All right.
Okay. So it means up to, but we're voting on at.
Yes.
Could I have your name?
Placing the announced
Could I have-
tuition rate.
I need your name.
Karina Martin. Karina?
Karina Martin, thank you.
Yeah, it means to me that we're replacing the announced tuition, the statewide average, with that other number, but even at that number, if there was a school that cost less, they would get less, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing, just so people know too, tuition isn't paid to, like if Randy had 3 students go claim that he sent them to Burton, we don't pay the money to the person, we pay it to the school.
Marcos Lee, if that gets voted down, and let's say a public school is higher than that, do you pay?
We're required to pay, as a tuitioning district, we're required to pay whatever the public school charges.
Okay.
So that was one of the points that has been made in the past. I think this year there's somebody who's higher than that 19,987 maybe.
There's somebody who-
Well, Leland Gray is 19, yeah. One year, I know the first year was discussed in Dover, Twin Valley and Leland Gray were both higher than the Burton announced tuition. So, and again, these numbers are based on their best guess estimate too. They take their budget divided by the number of students, so there can be some variance. But you know, that we're required to pay that if you wanted your child to go to the Burlington High School, public high school, and it was $40,000 tuition, we would have to pay that.
Thank you.
Right, no we're not required to pay transportation, only tuition.
All right, is there any further discussion on the motion? All right, so the motion is, shall the voters of the River Valley's Unified School District set the annual tuition rate to approved independent schools at $19,987, which is the Burton sending school tuition for the 2023-2024 school year? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Article 8.
Madam Moderator,
Yes,
may I make one small, brief statement?
of course.
Thank you. What I want to say is thank you. I love coming to town meetings because Burton is a school that doesn't just serve students. We take very seriously our commitment to serve communities. And coming to what is a very efficiently run town meeting, it's a reminder to me and all of us how important our relationship is with our communities themselves. Again, it's not just about kids, even though schools are supposed to be about kids. So what I want to tell you is that we're here. If you've never visited, I would welcome any of you. I would welcome all of you. Same with members of the board. And we're really proud of what we do at Burton. We have a wide range of programs, so we're ready to serve every kid from wherever that kid is. And we're deeply committed to bringing out the best in each student. Amelia, I love your story, and I'm glad you took advantage of the Ecuador opportunity. In the back row, we've got Elijah Blasovsky, who has been raising his hand to at least second some of these motions, so I hope you get called on eventually. But Elijah is another student who's just all over Burton in all kinds of ways, whether it's Model UN or cinematography, or there's a lot here. And I know there are many parents in the audience right now and on the board. So you know best what we're about, but mainly I want to say thank you. And I think we have a really, really good mutual relationship, and I appreciate that. So thank you all.
Thank you. All right, Article 8. Shall the voters of River Valley's Unified School District approve the school board to expend $6,532,635, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. May I have a motion?
All right, so.
Thank you for waiting to see if anybody else wants it.
I heard you before.
Do I have a second?
Elijah?
Elijah?
You know, Elijah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, would you like to address this?
So if you go to those of you that have books, page, and we do have an extra one up here, page 14 to 18 is the budget. And we've actually worked fairly hard trying to make an educationally sound, taxpayer-friendly budget that can be approved, and try to cover all the items and stuff that is recommended to us by our administration. Everybody knows, we all thought when COVID ended, it would be over in a year, it was going to be like a bad flu, and we'd all be back to normal, and we don't know what normal is still. Our administration has made several requests of us. Some of it has to do with behavioral specialists in the building, some with counseling. There's a lot of issues that they're dealing with in the buildings. And this budget does include those additional positions. It winds up being almost 2 to 2.5. And we're also, as you all know, we lost both. And I told Mark we lost them both, and he thought they were in a car together or something. But both our administrators are moving on this year to other jobs. And we did decide to make the Wardsboro building principal for at least the foreseeable future a full-time position. Currently they did half-time as principal and half-time as an instructor, and it was really difficult when they were needed to be in their administrative role. So there's a little bit of moving around, but we think it's a really good budget. We think our students are doing well, considering what they've been through for the last few years, and we would ask that you support the budget.
So Jeremy, you made the motion. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I would just like to say that they put an awful lot of work into this. We are 2 towns. I was really glad that it wound up being our 2 towns, because I think there's a commitment to education in both of these towns that isn't necessarily in the broader area. So I strongly support it.
Thank you. Elijah, you can speak to this if you would like. You're good? Is there anyone else who has a question or a comment?
Peter Sebastian. What is the estimated educational tax rate increase for this year over last year for both Dover and Wardsboro?
So it gets really confusing, because I joke with one of our board members that until the people in most peculiar get done, we don't know, and numbers aren't set yet. So if you look on page 20 in the back of your book, this is a 3-year comparison, and the 3-year comparison shows you prorated homestead tax rates. So it's projecting last year Dover was at $1.5932, and it should be $1.46, and Wardsboro was at $1.5932, and we're estimating them at $1.46. But again, until we only vote an expense, we don't vote a tax rate. But we do have some articles to address that coming up.
Understood. I'm just wondering if you just figured out a rough percentage. And I hate to even tell you about my math, but I just did a rough calculation at 9% for Wardsboro, which I don't think is too terribly bad given the inflationary period that we're in. Has anyone done the math on the estimated?
I don't have that.
9% reduction.
No.
No, it's actually, it is gonna be an increase, I'm sorry. Our budget is up about, I forget the percentage, I don't remember the percentage, budget is up. About 2.5%. Pardon?
Page 11.
Pardon?
Page 11.
Page 11.
Year over year.
Yes, okay, so the budget is up year over year about 4.8%. But again, the big problem is if you sold your house recently, you know that you got a lot more than you thought you were going to get, and if you try to buy a house, you got a lot less house than you thought you were going to get with the money you had. The CLAs are really off kilter this year. I think, and again, I think that's on. You just have a chart. For some reason, I don't have the chart. And the problem is they blend the rates. It's not a, they don't do it by individual districts. They do it as a blended rate. The CLA is like 89% in Wardsboro and 90 something in Dover.
Page 12.
Page 12. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry, bottom of page 12. There's all your projections. I wish, if you knew that, I wish you
I
did.
commend you on the budget, though. I think you did a very nice job of keeping the budget low, given the inflationary period given it.
Oh, I'm sorry, the CLA dropped to 81.34 and 73.56.
And that's a statewide kind of a problem right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, bottom of page 12 has all the rates. It's all figured out. I thought we did it, but I couldn't find it quickly. I'm really sorry, folks. That was really bad.
No. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Your name?
Sabrina Martin.
Sabrina, thank you.
On page 18, line 5950, I was just wondering what the additional $75,000 for the special items is for?
Yeah, that's the Board of Ed services, and what that is we haven't finished negotiating a contract yet, so it's a salary reserve fund. So after we negotiate, we'll move that into the appropriate line items where it needs to go.
So that leads me to my second question, if I may. It doesn't appear that there's all that much of an increase for the salary in the administration on page 16.
Yeah, because we don't know what we're going to be paying yet, because we have 2 new administrators coming in.
Right, so I wanted to make sure there was money for that.
Yeah, no, that's where we put the money. And you all know, we've discussed it, and maybe you don't all know, and I'm sorry, I assume, which I shouldn't. A school board has bottom line responsibility. And when I first started serving on the board, it used to be if the school board spent over its budget, the individual members were responsible for the balance. And I'm very serious. And so the school board doesn't have to have line item responsibility, so we can move money between line items if we need to. And also because we never know how many students are going to move in, I always used to joke in Dover, if I knew what oil was going to cost a year and a half down the road, I'd be playing the futures market, and I would probably be on some tropical island relaxing. So this is a best guess scenario. So sometimes we overspend the budget. The first year of COVID, we way overspent on some items because we tuitioned. A lot of families moved into the area, and we didn't plan on that. And then the next couple of years, we planned on a certain amount of people. Some of the students have moved on or gone to different schools. So it's always kind of a best guess scenario.
I just follow up earlier when you were talking about transportation costs. I think I'm reading this correct, and I'm trying to find where the 7 to 12 transportation costs are. And I do see on page 18, line 251, or 252, total residential students. Is that the transportation cost for 7 to 12 for secondary students? Because then there's another line item on the previous page under elementary K to 6 that says transportation residential students of 83,000.
Okay. Give me those 2 lines again.
Sure. Page 18, towards the top, under secondary, 7 to 12, line 252.
That's part of the special ed budget.
Okay, so there's not a distinction in the secondary education for transportation that's being provided to Leland and Gray, BAMS, and Twin Valley. Is that correct? It's all being lumped in under page 17, line 236, transportation?
Correct.
And I only bring that up because I know there's been a lot of discussion and there's been requests from the public about getting some help for the burden families who are paying all the transportation costs to get their kids to the school. And so I just wanted to get understanding, because when you look at the tuition amount of what it costs per student, that's not really reflective of what it costs us as taxpayers. So there's not a way to, you don't have a way in this budget to classify what the actual expense is to transport these 63 students to BAMS, Twin Valley, and Leland and Gray that we choose, because I understand we're not obligated to provide that education, but we're choosing to provide that bus transportation.
Yeah, there was actually a vote of the electorate at one point to do that.
Okay, so it could potentially be voted again and reconsidered?
Yeah, if someone wanted to bring a petition to the board or to bring a discussion to the board, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other discussion or questions? All right, seeing none. Shall the voters of River Valley's Unified School District approve the school board to expend $6,532,635, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Article 9. Shall the voters of the River Valley's Unified School District fund its reserve funds in the following amounts for the 2023-2024 school year, and fund those reserves with a transfer from the general reserve fund? Capital improvements: for buildings, $100,000; for transportation, $50,000. Do I have a motion? I'm going to call on you. Amelia Nick.
I knew that.
Amelia moves.
I'll second it. Tennille Cutler.
Cutler seconds. Would you like to
Yeah,
speak,
so
please?
if you go to page 9 in your book, I actually wrote this one down. I'm sorry I didn't write the tax one down. So this is as of audited from FY22. So again, there'll be a little change this year. Whatever money gets moved in, if we have any surplus at the end of this year. If you see about 6 lines down, it says Reserve Fund, Fund 2605. We currently have $845,990 in that. And what we're asking to do is to take the $150,000 out of that, so we won't be raising it in taxes, and that's one way we're able to help the tax rate. And we would move it into the capital building and capital transportation. The capital building is your second line from the bottom, that has $211,000, and capital transportation has $110,000 in it. And then if you look on the bottom, it says combination, and it shows fund balance. And what we try to do is project out 10 years. You're not voting to do anything for the next 10 years. All we're doing in this article is voting to fund it, but this is why we ask for the amount, because if you follow the chart across, there's some years we spend less and some years we spend more. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them better than we did the last one.
Amelia, you have the right of first question if you want it. Tennille, you have second.
I'm good. You guys have worked hard on this.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, seeing none. Shall the voters of the River Valley's Unified School District fund its reserve funds in the following amounts for the 2023-2024 school year, and fund those reserves with a transfer from the general reserve fund? Capital improvements: for buildings, $100,000; for transportation, $50,000. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Article 10. Shall the vote...
Before you read
Okay.
that, Article 10 got cut off, and I just noticed that. So,
It's going to
is it,
be...
would anybody mind if I made the motion to make it easy? Or,
Because he knows what it should say.
I hope I do. is that if nobody has a problem, I'd like to move Article 10, shall the voters of the River Valley Unified School District authorize the school board to withdraw money from the reserve fund to offset the homestead tax rate, but not more than $80,000. Andy, do you want me to write that?
You said 80,000?
Not more than.
Right. Okay, so the motion is, shall the voters of the River Valley's Unified School District authorize the school board to withdraw money from the reserve fund to offset the homestead tax rate to an amount of not more than $80,000? And we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second, Chairman.
Jeremy. Do you want to?
Yeah, and again, this is something we've done for the last several years. When we were seeing an increase, we asked that we move some money from the reserve. We don't want to move it all because it's not a dollar for dollar. Not every dollar we move stays us a dollar. But it does help offset and keep the tax rate lower. And again, we don't know exactly what that number is till the legislature goes home. But we've been asking to move a little bit over. And after consulting with the business manager and the board, we came up with a number of $80,000 this year.
Peter McDonald. So if you don't move the money, what do you do with the money?
It sits in the reserve fund.
General reserve.
Yes. And we don't touch reserve fund money without permission from the voters. So if it sits there, we don't move it, we don't take it out unless we come to the voters and ask for your permission. Unless you want to send us all like in February to Hawaii for a board retreat.
No, I brought this up at one of the school board meetings. I would much rather see us put more money into the building reserve and the transportation reserve than give it back. I just fear that somewhere down the road, we're gonna have a major capital expenditure, and we're not saving for it.
Yeah, and that's why we're not recommending to move it all. We feel that moving 80,000 out with what we hope may be going back in may be a net zero result, but we can't do it without your permission now. So that's why we ask for the permission to do it now, because what happens is after you approve the budget and after the legislators go home, we have to file a report by the end of May with the state. And that is our expenditures and other income other than taxes, and that's what the state uses to determine what our tax rates are going to be and how much has to be collected. And that's why we have that there, so that hopefully we have less, and it helps us to work closer to try to get a more level tax rate for you all. And again, even if you move that, you'll still have almost $800,000 if we were to have a major capital expense. And let's say that the school roof was to blow off, then we would probably just use it. We can borrow from ourselves, and then we would have a special meeting with the voters to say, hey, look, the roof blew off, the furnace blew up, we didn't know. And we'd like to take money out of the reserve fund for that. And then the voters would get to tell us what they feel is best.
Thank you.
Andy?
So Rich, when the board decides how much, if any, to move, that's at one of your meetings and people can show up and speak to that.
Yes.
And so on your agenda, it will say, we're going to decide this question.
No, it's usually on the agenda when we set the budget, when we discuss budget. There's not a specific item just to discuss how much to move. It's all part of the budgeting process.
All part of the budgeting process? So people wouldn't necessarily know what meeting you would be making that decision?
It would be when we discuss the budget, yes.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes?
Is it possible to know what the difference would be if we didn't move the money in the tax rate?
It's not as easy as it used to be because it's a blended tax rate, but it's usually a couple pennies. It's usually around a penny raises $40,000, just a little different in Wardsboro and Dover. It was a lot easier before Act 60.
You're welcome. Were there any other questions or comments? All right. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District authorize the school board to withdraw money from the reserve fund to offset the homestead tax rate to amount of not more than $80,000? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. This one's going to be long. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve the following statement? The River Valleys Unified School District hereby advises the Vermont General Assembly and the Governor. 1. Because our school district does not operate a public high school, students have the opportunity to choose from a variety of public and independent high school options. 2. The electorate does not support the public funding of any school that discriminates against students or staff on the basis of race, creed, color, national origin, disability, marital status, sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. 3. The electorate supports the current structure of independent schools having autonomy over their governance and operations within the current regulatory framework. This structure of oversight has enabled our districts to make high school education available as required by the state of Vermont, while maintaining confidence that the schools serving our students provide a high quality of education. And 4, the electorate opposes efforts to change the current structure in a way that eliminates educational opportunities made possible by our current practices of high school choice. The electorate believes our current local education system, in a great example of Vermont traditions, has evolved within this current structure through a high level of community commitment and an appropriate exercise of local control to provide high-quality, equitable educational opportunities for our students. So I'm just going to repeat that.
Elijah Kosofsky, Worcester.
Elijah makes a motion.
All right.
Dave Sklar, Wordsboro, second.
Dave's going to second. Would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, this was an article that a parent presented to us, and I'm not going to remember who the parent was. So they asked us, they brought it to us. It was kind of, we had to vote on it that night, so we had to make a little bit of an adjustment. It wasn't exactly what they brought us, but to make it a question, it had to be reworded a little. And we were hoping that that person would speak to it. And I don't.
Did you say your name?
Hi, I'm Beth Schoenfeld.
Beth Schoenfeld?
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I just wanted to bring this article that other towns have all voted on, mostly unanimously, just to send a message to the school board, the governor, the legislature, and everybody that this is what we really want in our community that's been working really, really well. I think that it offers the students amazing educational outcomes and options. So a child can find a school that really fits their needs, which is just unbelievable. I also think that this school choice really helps our economy and is a driver of people moving and staying in our community. So, thank you.
Thank you for explaining that. Does anyone have any comments? Do you have any board members who wish to speak additionally to this?
Randy Capitani. I probably direct this mostly to Laurel. Age 483, passed the House, went to the Senate Ed. Any movement on it? What's going to happen with that? Because that will directly affect to some degree this article.
Yeah, I don't know until, we see what happens with the Senate. It appears that they're not going to do anything with it, which of course leaves us all in a pretty big state of flux and unknowing, unfortunately.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There was another hand.
I just had a hand.
Could you say your name again, please?
Deirdre Benson, Dover.
Thank you.
Just number 2, an article, I could be wrong, but I'm not seeing religion tied in there either, to not discriminate on religion, so I just wasn't sure if that was something I was missing.
It doesn't say that, no.
Again, this was an article that was presented to us. We just had to work on the top a little bit to make it like a question, so that was.
So this, as I'm understanding it then, this statement, this is what this is it's a statement, is not explicitly stating that discrimination based on religion is part of this intention.
guess you could amend the motion.
If someone would like to amend the motion, I will entertain an amendment. Yes?
Marco Tellini, could we have a friendly amendment to say that we don't discriminate based on religion?
So our section 2 of the statement of Article 11 would now read, the electorate does not support the public funding of any school that discriminates against students or staff on the basis of race, creed, color, national origin, disability, marital status, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religion.
So we have to make that amendment.
Marco
Okay.
just did.
Marco did. Marco
Did he?
made that motion. I just worded
You
it
making
for
that
him.
amendment, Marco?
I am.
And do I have a second to the amendment?
Big one.
You haven't said anything yet.
Second, Mike Murphy.
Mike Murphy, okay. Okay. All right, is there anyone else who wishes to comment, question?
Yes. Creed is a system of Christian or other religious belief.
I wasn't sure creed meant religion. That's what you thought too?
I had to look it up.
But I think it's good to clarify it so that if we had that question.
So, do we have any other questions on the amendment? We have to vote on the amendment first, then we vote on the primary motion. So, is there any other comment or question about the amendment, which is adding or religion to section 2? All right, we are now voting on the amendment, not on the main motion. All in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, the motion, the amendment carries, and the statement will now reflect that amendment. So now we go back to the main motion. Are there any questions or comments about the main motion?
Just one question. Any board members object to this or disagree with this amendment?
We did not take a vote as a board. We agreed to put it on the agenda. So I don't, we did not vote on it, but nobody objected to it going on the. Pardon?
I think we did vote on it.
We voted to put it in there.
We voted to put it in.
Right, we didn't vote that we supported it or not. We
Right.
felt that you folks would tell us. So you could ask each individual board member if they wanted to tell you what they thought, but it was not, the board did not vote.
Did you want to poll the board members?
No need.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to say that I supported putting this on after clarifying that it was non-binding. We are really going to be driven by the actions of the courts. I think it's appropriate for the communities to make statements about what they want, and that's what this is.
All right. So the normal procedure would be for me to restate the motion. I was thinking I might spare you all that. So if there are no objections, I'm simply going to ask for a vote on Article 11. All in favor? Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries.
Does reading that motion scare people away from asking to be moderator?
I don't know, but I'm not taking any chances. Okay. Now, Article 12. Any other business that may legally be addressed or open discussion for informational purposes. Board representation from the towns, an update, and website update.
So as you all know, because we just did it, when we formed the district, we were originally with Marlboro, and there was going to be 3 school districts, and I was telling our guest from Burton that Randy Capitani was on that group to look at integrating the 3 towns. Wanted to call it Connected by Dirt Roads, because although Marlboro, Wardsboro, and Dover all share borders, you can't get from one town to the other without driving on a dirt road.
Yeah, it was the best name ever.
It was.
I don't know why they didn't approve that.
But Mark came up with a really good one. What was the one you came up with?
It was something about nitty gritty dirt.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty dirt district. So, yeah, and I named my daughter after one of those songs, Amy. But anyways, so we got in a little bit of trouble with the state when we were doing that, because they said, oh, well, you got to base it on population. So we said, okay, we thought we had set it so that up to 10,000 voters in town, or up to 10,000 residents, everybody got 3 members. Well, it gets somewhere along, and Randy and I and Dwight that all served on that group have been asking each other. We thought it was in there. It really wasn't. It was based on the census, and it said every census we need to reevaluate. And during that census, in the last census, Dover grew, Wardsboro shrank, so we should have realigned to have 4 members from Dover and 2 from Wardsboro. We felt that this has been a partnership, it hasn't been a takeover, we've all gotten along really well, why wouldn't we keep it the same? So we inquired of an attorney, and he told us that we could do a modified vote by having 1 candidate from each town each year, but that the people from from both towns vote for that person. That's why this year, those of you in Wardsboro and those of you in Dover had 2 names on the ballot and 2 positions, but you only could vote from 1 person from each town. And we think it's worked out really well. There wasn't a huge turnout for the vote. Again, it's kind of funny, it was more people in Wardsboro turned out for that vote than Dover. But it passed pretty unanimously. I can't remember the numbers, but it was substantially. And we appreciate that. We just want to say we think that's going to be a really good move for us over the next 10 years. In 10 years, I promise you, you won't have to listen to me. I won't be up here, but maybe Mike will still be around, so he can tell you about it. So we didn't know if there's any questions or if anybody had any comments.
I have
Your name, sir?
Alan Block, Dover.
Thank you.
I have a question about voting, and I know that in some of the meetings I've been to, we discussed it, but now we have numbers, and we see that for Dover, I think it was 95 to 41, something like that. It's 140 odd people voting in Dover, where we have an ostensible population of 1,700. And that's a disappointing number, right? It's 10%, less than 10%. And you know, I'm trying to understand. I know that, like, of all the friends that we have here, everyone's got kids, everyone, you know, it's pretty hard to vote sometimes, and it's pretty hard to get here at 7 o'clock on a night. And I'm just wondering if there's ways to explore making it easier and trying to get that turnout up, you know?
I can comment that I used to have a joke in Dover. We have members of the public, and I would say, okay, it's members of the public. Now listen, you all can't speak at once. You have to take your turn. We're going to limit you to 30 seconds because there's so many of you. And what's the next item on the agenda? And I actually had 2 citizens come up to me and tell me they were very upset with me about that. And they said, if we come out in large numbers, you know you've done something wrong. If we're not coming out in large numbers, we overall appreciate what you're doing and we support you by not coming to the meetings. And I think I take some of that to heart, because one of the first meetings when I became chairman was when our administrator said, hey, let's do away with winter sports in Dover, Vermont. And the next meeting, we had 140 parents there, and there was only like 75 students, so I don't know. And then we had the transportation, you know, so if there is a topic that is sparks some interest, we do see better turnout. We've talked about having, Andy and I have had a lot of discussions. We talk about, there's some books that have been written, a professor at UVM. They tried Saturday meetings, they've tried all sorts of different things, and the turnout seems to not change all that much. So there was a joke at one time we used to talk about, let's put a really controversial issue up front and people will come to the meeting. We've also seen then that controversial issue gets discussed and then the room empties out. One year we voted on a playground in Dover. We had, a town meeting, we had 100 and something people there. As soon as that article was over, we hadn't even gotten the budget yet, the room cleared out. So there has been a lot of discussions. If you have a good way to increase participation in voting, in town meeting day and the school district meeting, we'd love to hear it, and we'd love to hear from you folks, is that, we try to move the meeting closer to the spring when we know better what's going on. If you remember when we met under the tent out here in Wardsboro, if we had voted in the end of February, beginning of March on the budget, our tax rate looked like everybody was going up like $1. But then what legislature did, and with suspending some the penalty and the money and the yields, we came out at a lower tax rate. And we'd like to go a little bit later, and if those of you that have been around in Dover for a long time know that when Act 60 started, we used to go to town meeting and we used to make a motion to defer the budget or to pass over the budget, and we would come back and meet sometime in April or May, because we could give you more realistic numbers and we knew what was happening and we could protect the voters better and keep more money at home. So again, we're really open to suggestions.
Other than like the AA way with donuts and coffee, I don't really have any good.
I got some Chex Mix.
There's a little more at AA than just coffee and donuts, but just as a personal opinion, if I may step out of my moderator role for a second, offer to carpool people. You know, like literally, if you call somebody directly and ask them to come, they're more likely to come than if they just see a notice on a bulletin board somewhere. And, well, Cordy actually had a hand up.
There, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was an absentee voter ballot, right? You couldn't make it?
Yeah.
Yesterday.
So yes, ballots were available for absentee voting. And I agree with you, Alan. It's difficult to see numbers like that. I would say, echoing what Rich said, when people feel compelled to vote by a question on the ballot or a race on the ballot, they show up more, right? The special vote to change the representation of the school district and how these folks, the makeup of the board. In Dover, it wasn't really an issue in Dover. We stood to either maintain equal representation or have more people from Dover on the board. And we had 33 people show up for that vote, which was similar to the vote we just had, the election we just had. Physically, that we had absentee ballots available and all the same warnings and so forth. But people didn't show up because it wasn't compelling. Whereas for the election, we had 107 people show up, which is still not awesome, but it's a lot better than 33. But people were like, hey, it's a contested race. We get to have some power and make a decision. That's what really gets people out for a vote. I think the district being new, you folks showing up tonight is really good. Bringing your kids is even better. Maybe something in the schools, some kind of curriculum around civics or voting or governance would be cool. Becoming a unified district has presented problems with voting. It's not as easy. You can't do it at town meeting when everybody's used to showing up. And it has to take place not at the school meeting because you have to have polling places in both towns. It's more complicated, and that has reduced our turnout. Food absolutely helps. It really does. But with an Australia ballot, you can't really do that, right? We could do that here at this meeting, and I think next year we should. I think it would make a difference, make it a homey feel, like a town meeting kind of a thing. It is a problem. I agree. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Rick and Randy Capitani, just to put a little perspective on it, and some of you guys will remember, Sarah. 4 years ago, this meeting was held in February. It was a snowstorm, and there were maybe 10 people in the room? So compliments to everybody here. The discussion is certainly much livelier than it was that night. And I didn't get elected auditor tonight, so I'm feeling pretty good. So, it's all perspective, Alan. But Rich is right. Put a controversial issue on it, and people will definitely come out for it.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Jennifer Finale, Wardsboro. I just wanted to bring up, as we're talking about the annual meeting and now voting in time, that honestly, since we changed it to April, it feels really in the school, it's very late to vote for the budget and staff. The teachers are waiting for contracts. Other places in the SU and the state have already received their contracts, where our teachers, we don't even know if the budget's passed yet. We have town meeting day off from school, and we didn't have town meeting this year. We didn't have school meeting. I just feel that we really should back it up a little bit closer to a town meeting when people are honestly thinking budget and voting. And think of our teachers.
Rich, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, we can't do it the same day as town meeting because it's not a town anymore.
So we can do it at 9.
You can't because most of your town clerks are still running the elections, and we wouldn't have our district clerk.
So we can do it around that area of timing, I guess. Oh, back in Wardsboro, we used to do the school vote the night before town meeting because we were having a low turnout on town meeting day for the school vote in the afternoon. So we used to have it the night before.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to make a comment or ask a question?
No,
Like on any topic?
no,
Well, we're doing
board
any other business that may legally be addressed or open discussion for informational purposes. We were specifically going to talk about board representation and website. We've covered board representation. We haven't covered website yet. And then from there, we can go to other business. Go ahead.
So the website committee consists of myself, Mark Schauber, Derek Bliss, who's IT for Women's Central Supervisory Union, and our school administrators, Tammy Bates and Matt Martin. We are phenomenally behind, without question. And a lot of that has been a cause of doing by committee, needing a quorum, and having our administrators be called to more pressing duties. Namely, as we discussed, the need for additional counselors in the schools. There have been behavioral elements that need to be addressed. Pre-meeting had a nice talk with Mr. Tashin about coming out of COVID and seeing some teachers and members of the faculty, in the room with us. They can certainly attest that our students are still reacclimating to the social norms of schools, and it's been difficult. That is not meant to be an excuse. The update that I can provide for you is that the structure of the website is done, and the mock-ups have looked fantastic and are very user-friendly. And will certainly, we anticipate, bolster the recognition that River Valley's Unified School District is going to receive through various searches. We are in the process of content creation at the moment, and that is what is going to take the longest amount of time. I am not here to suggest that we want to or will ask to spend more money. If you recall, the electorate had provided up to $30,000 for this project. We are well under $20,000 spent at this point, so if there is a need, which again, there may very well be for the use of videographers to be able to create more current content. One of the elements for those of you that have books in your hands for today's annual meeting, some of the pictures that we have in those books are fantastic, and they're also extremely dated. Some of the kids on the front cover are first and second graders. Yes, Mr. Murphy, your son and daughter, looking as siblings should, very, very loving and joyful with each other, are now in 7th and 8th grade. So while they are still very representative of our community, to have more current versions of the students that we do have in both Wardsboro and Dover campuses is what is required. Mr. Schauber had made a recommendation, and it was well received by the committee, that because at the moment, Mr. Martin is the chairman of the committee, and he has been pulled away in untimely fashion for too many meetings. And again, it's appropriate that he has been able to do so. So Mark had presented the idea of himself becoming the chairman of that committee so that we can stay more on track. So the board has some discussion to do at its next meeting about how to readdress the website implementation committee to make sure that this process stays on track and comes to fruition sooner than later.
Did anyone have any questions about the website or any comments?
I have one. Nicole Klontz, Dover.
What was your last name?
Klontz, C-L-O-N-T-Z.
Thank you.
In terms of collecting content, like pictures and video, have we considered partnering with, say, Burton, who has photography classes and videography classes, and having a student create some content as part of their assignments?
Yes, as a matter of fact,
Okay.
that discussion has come up. I think with all the schools that we support with our community sending to various schools, that the opportunity that we know that they do provide, or that they have requirements for community service hours, and they also have the wherewithal to be able to present for us and help us create that. It's a fantastic opportunity, a real experience. So yes, it has been discussed, but it has not been furthered an awful lot. We ran into a small issue where our website developers had some personal elements as well. So throughout January and February, we lost touch a little bit coming out of the Christmas break. But I'm very glad that you made that statement public, because yes, indeed, that is something that we have considered and wish to pursue further.
Did you wish to make a comment?
Elijah,
I know.
where do you stand on community service hours? Because he is your guy.
So my name's Elijah. Most of you know me. I am a senior at BBA this year, and BBA has given me opportunities specifically with film and photography. I'm currently standing at 1,500 or 1,050 service hours, with the majority of it coming from film and photography at sports games. And I know plenty of students who would love to get the opportunity to start earning hours doing that. When students tend to look at service hours, they think it's not going to be fun. I furthered my passion into service, and I will continue to do so into college. So,
Thank you. We can give him a round of applause.
I'll also add, and Mr. Tatching can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the graduation requirement for service hours is 40.
28.
28.
Elijah's over the top.
Yeah.
And
So.
he's not allowed to sell them to others.
They're not
So I'm assuming that you will be in contact with you and see where that goes.
Yeah, that would be a great connection.
Is there any other comments or questions regarding Peter?
Just a question on the agenda for the school board meeting. I often find it very difficult to find that anywhere online. I'm fortunate that I'm on Janet's email list. But I was wondering if there's a way to make that easier for the general public to get the agenda.
I think it's on the WCSU website.
I can't see it.
It's not super easy.
And unfortunately, we can't control the WCSU website, but,
Yeah,
I think-
Peter, that is something that was of paramount importance to us, to make sure that the documents, the minutes from past meetings, and the agendas for upcoming meetings, warnings and all the like, were much easier to find for the general public. So that has been addressed in the content, or in the setup of the website itself.
and I still have the flip phone, so I have trouble finding it too.
You got Bluetooth now, I've seen you.
I know, it still isn't any easier.
Was there a question about, all right. Laura, did you have a comment?
Yes. So just for those who don't get my newsletter, I put out yesterday, next Monday night from 7 to 8, there will be an online session, next forum on the issues surrounding Carson versus Macon, which of course are putting all of our school choice policies into considerable question. At the request of folks who have been participating, we have the chair of the House Education Committee coming, and then I believe the attorney from the ACLU. And this will be to walk folks through the Carson versus Macon decision. Monday from 7 to 8. It'll be online. It'll be a Zoom meeting, and you can find information on it on my website.
Were there any other questions or comments? All right, Article 13 is Australian ballot. This refers to the election that Andy announced the results on earlier. It says to choose unified school district officers for the following positions. All voting to be by Australian ballot from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Monday, April 24th, 2023, with Dover voters to vote at Dover Town Hall, 189 Taftbrook Road in East Dover, and Wardsboro voters to vote at the Wardsboro Town Hall, 71 Main Street, Wardsboro. Please note that as a result of the recent change in Articles of Agreement, the voters from both towns vote for school directors, with one director coming from each of the towns. A school director from Wardsboro for a 3-year term and a school director from Dover for a 3-year term. On Article 14, to elect a moderator to serve for the fiscal year July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. I'll entertain nominations.
I'd like to nominate Sarah Shippey.
She's done a fabulous job.
Second.
I have a good tutor.
Everyone needs a second. Do you need a second?
Sure.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none.
I move that the nominations be closed.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Article 14B, to set a stipend of $200 per meeting for the moderator. Stephanie moved, and second? Deirdre Benson. Wait a minute, you haven't gotten your name in the... What's your name?
Michaela
Quinn. Michaela is your second. All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Article 15, to adjourn the meeting. Tennille, motions to adjourn?
Oh, this is so much fun. Why don't we just do
Second,
Alan, seconds.
Probably we have food.
And my understanding is you don't have to vote on a motion to adjourn, you just adjourn. Thank you all for coming out. Checks. I'm calling to order the meeting of the River Valley's Unified School District Board for reorganization. We had a motion for to nominate for chair.
I move the Richard Warner.
And a
I
second.
says Werner.
I think Dwight seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Richard Warner has been elected and will now take over the meeting.
Okay, so I believe Laura nominated Kate for vice
This is
chair.
the board meeting.
You don't need mayor for this to do that?
No, I'll do it. It's gonna be quick. So Laura moved for Kate for vice chairman.
Got seconded.
No, actually, we don't need a second. It's okay. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Kate. Yep. We just, before you leave too, we gotta get you to fill out some information so I can get you to Wyndham Central. And remind me to talk to you about email addresses.
Yep.
We need a clerk. Remember, the clerk is not the person who takes the minutes. Clerk is the one that when we get sued, gets served. And you actually got served. So it has happened.
I move Dwight for clerk. Since he's so
Any
good
other
at being served.
Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Okay, so that's our officers. So we have a thing called authorized signatures. So what happens is since sometimes we don't meet or we have weather, we just chose not to meet during the summer, we still have bills to pay, so we have to do, we have a couple people that will review and sign the warrants because they're technically not supposed to hand out checks unless the warrant's been signed. I know I've been it, and I think you were it too, or who was the?
Rick Thorpe used to be, right?
Thorpe, Rick and I. But is there anybody else that wants to do it?
It should be someone who is able to
Go
to
Harmonyville, the
yeah, if
Universe.
necessary, on the, yeah. And who is it right now? Is it you and Kate?
No, I think it was me, and I thought it was Dwight, but I know it was Rick Thorpe.
If you and Dwight are able to do it, I would be happy to make that motion.
I have pretty flexible schedule.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Paper of record. So this is where we have to put our legal notices. The only big legal notice we have is our annual meeting. We've used the Reformer, and we've also in the past said we also notify the Deerfield Valley News because a lot of people in Wardsboro and Dover actually read that newspaper. And I've seen less and less people reading the Reformer. But we need to have a paper of record. That's something that's required of us.
What is it right now?
The Reformer, we also notify the Valley News.
I move that our paper of record is the Reformer, and we also notify the Deerfield Valley News.
Okay, that needs a second because that's not a nomination. Okay, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
If you have any questions, ask.
I'm just taking it all.
Okay, so meeting times and dates. So this is what we've used, and this is where we've had a little issue with a former board member. We can say we're gonna meet certain days and times, and that also counts as a warning. So we've always met, one of the things we have to kind of do is make it so that it works for all the board members, but we also have to make it work for Wyndham Central because we rely on them to do stuff for us. So we try to, the different schools in Wyndham Central try to pick different nights so that the superintendent doesn't have 6 meetings in one night. So if we need them for something. So we currently have been doing the first and third Mondays at 6 o'clock. So does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a revolving door of sports schedules, but it'll work. I mean, playing every sport under the sun, so.
You need 7.
Right, we moved it to 6 because if we started at 7, it'd
6
go
is
to
definitely
9.
better.
Well, it's the problem is we start at 6, it still goes to 9. So.
Well then, I don't think it's gonna go as long.
All right, okay. I'm fine with 6, but I think,
We try to do 2-hour meetings, because really, I don't know, some people, it gets old.
No soul saved after 8 o'clock.
Is that what they say? Yeah.
Mm.
So, but again,
Wait, what does
I
that
mean,
say?
so do you
No
want to
soul
split the
saved
difference?
after
Well, wasn't
I
6:30?
feel like
6,
I
it was, I
need
think we
a
worked from
poster.
7 and 6:30, now 6.
Yeah, we've moved
Kind
it
of.
forward. It used to be at 7 too, but it's up to you guys. I mean, I don't have any kids at home. I only got a couple puppies, and they can actually stay home by themselves.
So, I do the best that I can. So if I can't be here in person, I'll come in on.
But the morning, the quicker she can leave, because she drives to
Oh, they drive-
Montpelier
oh,
too,
yeah.
just in the winter, so.
If 6 works for people, we can always switch it.
Right, we can
Yeah.
switch it, but
Yeah.
this is, we've been doing between 6 and 7, so.
Yeah. 6 is
You're the new guy, make a motion.
Yeah, 6.
So I'd say 6 is fine.
First and third Mondays.
First and third
First and
Monday.
third
And
Monday.
did you say the first was in Dover and the
No,
second?
first is in
First is in
Wardsboro,
Wardsboro.
and then the second is in Dover, and sometimes we'll move it, like if we don't have, around the first of the year, you have Martin Luther, which is usually the 3rd, and then President's Week, which is usually the 3rd, so a lot of times you only meet once, so we may meet in Wardsboro 1 month, and then the next, we try to go back and forth, so if people want to come to the meeting, it's easy for them.
I'm sorry, did you say the first is typically Wardsboro?
Yes. And Mike made that motion at 6 PM.
Yep, I got 6 PM.
Your first
and third
motion,
Monday.
Betty.
Not even sure what I just said. All right. Here we go.
And do we have a second to Mike's motion?
Second.
Okay, so Mike moved, Chad seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Truant
appears to be
officer?
unanimous. Yeah, truant officer, town of Dover has the Dover Police Department. Wardsboro doesn't have a police department. I've talked to Randy in the past. He'll be with us through the end of December. I don't think Mike's gonna be any different. Mike's from Wardsboro anyways. So we would name the Dover Police Department usually.
So
And
moved.
Laura, second. Chad, Truant. All in favor?
Aye.
And just for the record, Mike isn't officially hired yet.
No, I know that.
So
But if you don't hire anybody, he would take, assume
he would
command.
be the, right.
So, okay, and then the next thing, folks, is so there's the supervisory union and then there's our district, okay? At the WCSU, we have a policy committee for district-wide policies, WCSU-wide policies. So we've always had a member of the board assigned to that committee. Mark was doing it. I think they met once last year. Usually after legislature gets out, there's some new laws they pass that require policies. So there may be some stuff over this summer. It is a really good way to learn what's going on if you have any interest in policy. Policy is what the board does. That's our big bailiwick. We get to set policy. We don't run a school. We don't tell teachers what to do, but we do get to set policy. So we need a WCSU policy committee person.
It's just for policy?
Yeah, just the policy committee.
Doesn't Kate have some background in policy?
I have some background in policy, and if once a year, I can do that.
I say that, but Laura will have some say on how many times you have to do that. Dwight.
Among many other folks, right?
Yeah.
Don't bump it up to 26
It's, I
or
mean, I
anything
am
like that.
1 out of 180, my friends.
Okay, so that's a nomination, so I guess we're just gonna say that's good. We have a nomination. All those in favor say aye.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, yes, Kate. WCSU representatives. So WCSU is made up of several school districts. School supervisory and school is made up of the districts. We get 3 votes at WCSU because we're an operating school. Stratton gets 1 vote, Marlboro gets 3 votes, Wyndham gets 2 votes because they're a smaller operating school. So we need 3 representatives. It's usually, I've done it before, Dwight's done it, Mark was our 3rd person. So we need somebody to do that with us too. You want to do that?
That sounds like fun.
So the nominations are Richard, Dwight, and Kate?
Yeah.
How often are those meetings?
Is it monthly or?
No,
Not even.
it's probably 10 times a year.
Okay.
Generally, whereabouts are those?
Those have been remote lately, but we have a new superintendent coming in. And you can go to those meetings.
I gotta buy a computer.
Well,
Or
you
even
can
an
also,
iPad.
Mike, you can come to my
An iPad or
house
something like that.
and you do it with me. I've had that people do that before. We can go to the
My wife has
office.
computers, just well, she's like a school. Yeah.
So, but seriously, there's a meeting tomorrow night. Why don't you come to my office? If you got, it starts at 7 and you can be there for it and you can at least see what's going on. You don't get a vote, but you get to, you can start figuring out.
I used to go to them early on before I was on the committee.
So, so there's a motion for the 3 of us. Is there anybody else? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock.
Busy
And
day.
you come to my office.
Right at your office?
Yeah, we'll do it right, because I got a bigger screen, so we can both
I'll
sit
be
there. Okay. Current new board members, Mike's just gotta write, you gotta write your cell, your contact information. You're gonna get a WCSU board email address, because they recommend that you use that so that if we ever get sued, they don't get all your personal stuff.
Fill out no email.
No, they're gonna give you one, but why don't you put your personal email now, and then he can email you the stuff, and we'll get Matt to help you get set up. I still have not figured it out. I still use my personal one because I cannot make it work right. You still use your personal too.
No, well, not on purpose.
Oh, then I sent it to you?
I do use it.
Mark wanted us to, and we haven't done it because the default is if you don't make a motion for something else, we default to Robert's rules. Mark wanted us to consider small boards again, and
Andy,
And Sarah.
are you done with me?
yeah,
Okay.
I really appreciate it, Sarah.
Sure.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
I
Thank
forgot,
you.
sorry, Andy.
No, you're good, no big deal.
Do you need anything from us?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm all set.
We again appreciate all your help.
Yeah, thank you folks.
I'm glad we actually had a turnout too for vote counting.
What's that?
I'm sitting in my car.
That was amazing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. You got kicked by a cat, so he's really.
Okay, so pretty much that's it. We're gonna meet Monday. Kate and I, as vice chair and chairman, we set up an agenda. If you have something specific you wanna see on the agenda, let one of us know ahead of time.
Sure. I'm just gonna take it in for the first few times to try to
Okay,
wrap
there's
my
also,
protocol.
we'll talk some other time. I know you got a ride, but there's also some training, VSBA training on what it means to be a board member. Just remember one thing, the board, we act as a board, so I can't tell you what to do, but usually the board makes a decision, even if you voted for it or against it, and it goes either way. We do try to be unified, because there's always gonna be a time one of us is gonna be on the wrong end of a vote. And any questions, everybody's been here for quite a while. Chad's probably, you're the newest member.
I'm the newest guy.
So you made him happy because now he's not the newest member anymore.
You gotta learn somewhere.
You do. So we appreciate it and glad you ran. And I'll just entertain a motion to adjourn. Anything we didn't get tonight, we'll get later.
When's the next meeting on?
Monday.
This coming Monday?
Yeah.
I actually
It's
think
May
the agenda-
1st.
Oh, May 1st.
We're going to do the agenda Thursday.
Thursday, okay.
Yeah, I would just say there's a tremendous resource for school boards. The VSBA has a bunch of webinars, things that you can look at in your own time around policy policy and how that kind of stuff is
So I'm,
developed.
that meeting Monday, I'm coming to.
Yep.
I'm starting in then.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, I mean,
In now.
it was just,
Started now.
Yeah, you should have just sworn.
Oh, I got
no,
sworn.
you already did,
All
both
right.
of them did.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm on top of it, I'm trying to keep things together.
We know.
Even though.
We know.
I got
Mr.
sworn
Chair.
in, but you go sit in the back.
It's right.
No, I did. No, I said, hey, well, I didn't think it was appropriate to set with the board until we had the reorg meeting, because it's usually till you reorganize. But, and what's confusing is, do we reorganize before the annual meeting?
Right.
And because we've never had a vote before the annual meeting.
Right, first time.
So maybe next year we want to consider that, remember that for
Yeah,
next
yeah.
year.
So, can we bring up any other business now?
I didn't have anything down,
Can
but,
I say anything
Sure.
about things that are happening?
sure. Is it like for specific to us or
Well,
specific
it's
to the
around
state?
weights, it's around the weights, so the
Are they
childcare
screwing
bill,
again?
the childcare bill. There's actually discussion, I don't know if they're gonna actually do it, of switching the pre-K weight, just kind of randomly to fit in with the bill. After,
Do something right, people get behind it, right?
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
so,
That's great.
there's a big fight happening that I'm not a part of, which I'm thrilled to
Finally.
make that not happen.
That you can sit on the sideline,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right, that's right. Pave-
Yeah,
pave
actually,
the
the
road.
Winooski Road is
That's
pretty,
good.
but just let me know that's out there.
There's also, you'll get, as soon as Bill gets your email set up, you'll get like, there's every week Vermont School Boards Association sends an email out during legislative session saying, here's some bills that may be of interest for you.
Gotcha.
So, and do you have, you don't have access to a computer, or you can,
I'll buy an iPad.
because you
I don't
can,
have-
you should really probably grab
Yeah.
like the last couple months of minutes just
Yeah,
to look.
I watched the videos.
Okay.
Have
You want us to
That
sign
one's
up?
Sorry.
you ever watched those trail meetings?
No.
I was getting tense. I don't know who that guy is. I don't need him to look at.
Who's that?
Drives a Subaru. Works at the town.
Well, that's
Well,
good.
that's hard to know.
His name, he's like the moderator.
Yeah.
He's what?
The moderator. He's the guy.
For a different school?
No, he works at the town of Dover.
Oh, yeah,
Did you say his name?
you know, the former director for the chamber,
Eric.
Eric DeRosa.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wow, they get heated. They get heated.
Yeah,
Like
well-
Mike Garver, Tom Oakley, just
Yeah, Tom Oakley was interesting, I was surprised. But let's adjourn, because we're on tape.
Sure.
Yes, indeed.
All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
8:38.
Thank you.